Scrap it. Completely scrap it.
And Ian hopped onto Asmongold's stream.
That's crazy, by the way. The fact that that interview happened is insane. So this is about Dragonflight. The changes coming in Dragonflight. And I want to see more of this because I'm actually getting interested. I want to see what's going to happen. I'm curious as to what's going to happen with this game. And I wonder if there's any more information that Bellular has to put us on this game. So massive changes are coming. Massive changes are coming in WoW Dragonflight by Bellular Gaming.
Developer interviews recently. It's been kind of wild. T&E did a Twitter space with Ian and Steve. Mr. GM, he did a round with Helinka, and Ian hopped onto Asmongold's stream.
That's crazy, by the way. The fact that that interview happened is insane.
I'll tell you what, there's actually a lot of good here. Hell, I'll even start off with a fun one. There's no mission table in Dragonflight. Scrapped. Waste the dev time, at least in the non-committal way they'd been doing those things anyway, so just cutting the bull and focusing on what players want is what makes sense, and it kind of seems like they're actually doing that. There's so many great Dragonflight details to get into through this video. First, we're also a game studio here, and
before they go into more detail about what they're doing or what they're changing, I don't think it matters as much as to what they're changing for the launch of Dragonflight, as much as it matters how they respond after Dragonflight launches is the most important thing. If we launch Dragonflight and there are glaring issues and it takes them an entire patch cycle to fix those issues, the game is going to fail.
And our first proper look at the Pale Beyond, our first game, is happening Thursday at 6 p.m. BST live on this channel. It's the exact same time we go live on our Friday show, just on Thursday instead. I'll be there with Thomas, my co-founder, doing a demo. And
wait, what time is it?
There'll actually be a demo for you to play on Steam. And a few other things like they're actually We're also a game studio here, and our first proper look at the Pale Beyond, our first game, is happening Thursday at 6 p.m. BST live on this channel.
What is BST?
The exact same time we go live on our Friday show, just on Thursday instead. I'll be there with Thomas, my co-founder, doing a demo.
Oh, that's
and,
1 p.m.
there'll
today.
actually be a demo for you to play on Steam, and a few other things going on too.
We actually going to watch
Till
that.
then, any wish lists are deeply appreciated for, of course, the algorithm gods. No matter what platform you're on, there's always an algorithm god. Okay, let's get into this. First up, the setting of Warcraft.
An hour.
Now, this is a feeling that has came across in loads of interviews. Basically, Dragonflight is positioned towards people who did not feel like recent expansions meshed with them. I'm one of those people.
Same.
It's an adventurous, high fantasy, focused expansion that's really more targeted on why we fell in love with the world of Warcraft in the first place. That's definitely good to hear. It remains to be seen if they can actually pull.
I fell in love with WoW because of friends, really good combat, and in-depth systems that made sense and were not constantly changing, and excellent raids. That's why I fell in love with WoW. Also, a little bit of PvP in the back. But, like, those are the three main things that kept me in the game. And over the years, we lost the friends. We lost the really good systems that didn't change a whole lot, but just added on to each other. And then all we had left was raids, and that just wasn't enough for me.
That off, but that is a refreshing goal as compared to the strange edginess that WoW took on post BFA. Okay, so now that we're a little bit feeling better about the setting, let's talk about their philosophies on the playability of World of Warcraft.
Post edginess was a big thing after WoD came out. To be honest, you can't blame that on BFA. The game has been pretty edgy since WoD. It's been about, like, murder, death of the universe, crazy shit has been going down since WoD. So WoD and onwards were where it really started to go really bad, okay?
Borrowed power and friction came together to make
Legion was good,
Shadowlands
but
a perfectly frustrating experience
the overall,
for many players. Well,
the overall feeling of the game became edgy after WoD. Legion was good, but the overall feeling of the game was edgy after WoD.
Ian says they have changed their position on the role of friction in the design. And I suppose basically that means they've changed their position on where the meaning comes from in the phrase meaningful choice. I think that's what he's really getting at. And of course their borrowed power stance has changed as well, and he offered some insight into what has happened recently. Essentially, Ian said that, well, my interpretation, development timelines are a bastard. So, before Shadowlands came out, the team knew that they were moving away from borrowed power for the expansion after Dragonflight. Expansions are pretty big, and you do really need to plan those things in advance, so that does figure. And funny enough, that they weren't going to continue with that style of borrowed power, that was actually Preach's impression after his second interview with Ian. Anyway, the point is that Ian says they have learnt how bad it feels to lose borrowed power, and how earning it back again just feels rubbish, because in the back of your mind, you know you're just going to lose it again. Ian says they were basically feature locked on the development of Shadowlands, and that was basically that. They were feature locked, they couldn't really change things for Shadowlands, but they knew they were going in a different direction after that. Now look, if I was going to steelman Ian's position here, I'd say a game like this is made by a very large team. That means that things are not particularly agile. I think we all know that from the orgs we've worked in. At a point, a design gets locked in, and if other features have been built around that design, like a sort of a build-around feature, especially if those features involve dozens of people's work, then you end up in a situation where you've kind of went in too deep, and you can't just change what you're going to do.
Scrap it. Completely scrap it. Look, when it comes down to systems in WoW, we would rather have less than have shit. Does that make sense? Like, I would rather have less content to do than to be made to do content that I hate. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully that does.
Without significantly delaying, and clearly that's something they were not allowed to do. Now, that's the Steelman. Personally, let's just say, you know, if that's really what their timelines are like, then I do just question their past judgment, but I suppose that's easy for me to say in hindsight. I think what probably matters more, though, is what's next. And that's what's good.
It's not easy for you to say in hindsight. The truth is the WoW team, for a very long time, have refused to change, and they have thought themselves to be correct. That's the issue. It's not that they saw this coming from a mile away. It's that they thought they were correct. And that's why they made the decisions that they made that were wrong. They thought they were right. Yeah, but the lack of content would give you another reason to not be happy with the game, in all honesty. That's the reality of it. You'd end up moving to something instead of... You know, maybe you're right. But I would still rather be bored than busy. Is that crazy? I would rather be bored than busy. I would rather go somewhere else, play another game, and then come back and still say, oh, this game is good, it's just there's nothing out yet. Instead of being like, oh, the content that's out is bad. I think saying that the content that is out is bad is worse than saying, oh, there's no content to do yet. You think they're equal? Different perspectives, right? Yeah. Okay, that's fair. I can see that point of view.
Here, because just about everything Ian covered in these interviews was good. Dragonflight's decision-making seems to be excellent compared to what we've had thus far.
Kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation.
We'll have to see how it pans out in-game, but let's go through this. So, Zereth Mortis showed that better decision-making. Covenants were eased. There was no new borrowed power. Lots of nice things there. Loads of the community, though, thought, yeah, but it's just like patch 8.3, where you give us the nice shit at the end of the expansion. Ian was very clear to say that these are not just end-of-expansion quality of life features. Ian said that it reflects a fundamental shift in their design philosophy, that's just how they'll be going forward.
I'll believe it when I see it.
And everything else that he said really did reflect that. So here's a great thing. Almost everything, bar gear, is going to be account-wide in Dragonflight. If you unlock a cosmetic from a reputation, you can use that in your alt. So you know that difference between, say, the Covenant Lock cosmetics on launch Shadowlands versus the no restrictions later on? A bit like that. As for gear, they've not worked out how alt catch-up stuff is going to work, which I think is fair at this stage. I think by default, though, I would just say you could maybe do what Mop did.
Just make it all tradable, dude. Just make it tradable. Final Fantasy does it. It's not a big deal. Make it all tradable. Make it so that the first tier of gear on normal is all craftable and you can trade it between your alts. Who cares? It's normal gear. Just make it tradable. Who gives a fuck? Honestly, who cares? Most of the people who care about rating the most are going to be in Heroic Plus anyway. Make normal level gear from the raid craftable and tradable amongst all your alts. Easy.
For catch-up and reps and things like that. Now, these principles extend to the new dragon riding feature of this expansion. Of course, you'll have speed upgrades, endurance upgrades for your little stamina bar. You'll have cosmetic unlocks too. And those are all account-wide. Your alt will soar as fast as your main, no re-earning stuff you've already earned. On the topic of linear narrative content,
I'm excited for the flight
thinking about
mechanic.
how fun are things to do
that's cool.
again. And he said that linear narrative content will be skippable on alts. He said that people will play alts from week 1, and that means not making people wait months for the game to be alt-friendly. He was quite clear in recognizing that there is basically some pain in waiting for those usability fixes. This is all fantastic news. And look, even if you're still cynical about it, think about it this way. If he says all of this stuff, and then they go and not do that, well, then I guess you have a free win, don't you?
True.
So
True.
overall, look, music
Win-win.
to my ears. And with so much of the game opened up, and talents replacing borrowed power, it really does seem like Dragonflight will be fundamentally better. And I think I'll be playing a lot more alts. So let's move on to some content questions then. Outdoor content. I've been disappointed by it for a long time, and that's why I was quite happy to hear a lot of what was said. So for reputations, WoD turned them very much into grind bars. Legion and beyond was mostly just world quests.
Yeah, Legions is good. WoD was okay because leveling was fun. But the rest of them have been pretty bad. BFA and Shadowlands are bad.
Dragonflight changes that. The Renown system is essentially the new UI, but they're not really like Covenants, and it does not seem that they're going to be time-gated. Ian explained that the time gating in Covenants was essentially to manage the player power curve, because borrowed power was very tied to Covenants. Even if it did mean that the game would sometimes just say no when you were kind of mid-playing. So it seems like these renown bars are going to be used in reputations that you could basically label as being major factions. And again, don't worry about the parallel to Covenants there. It really does seem like they're just big reps with a slick new UI. It seems that there is no hard renown style time gate. The rewards, with the exception of gear that has power, are all going to be account-wide. Fair play, really, and the prospect of having better outdoor content is exciting. As an example, in another interview, Jeremy Fiesel said that they've actually staffed up the outdoor content team. So, they've got a staffed up team. The world of Dragonflight seems to be large in terms of its zones. And you know what? Soaring around on a very fun dragon with momentum and physics.
I love dragons.
Going between big reps in a zone where you're not time gated, you can just lash into it. That actually does sound pretty damn good on paper.
Yeah.
A reinforcing point to that is something Ian said with Asmongold, where Ian essentially said, look, we've perhaps underserved a silent majority of players with our open world content. I think that's Ian very much saying that the team understands they focus so much on the borrowed power, the dungeons and the raids and that kind of thing, that for the people who just want the World of Warcraft, some of that more casual open world experience, that they could do more, and it seems they're trying to do more. Now, Dragonflight, dragon riding then. So no combat in the system at launch, but they said the idea of bringing it into some combat content could work. I mean, I'd say, maybe not do Malagos style combat, but Even using them to, say, move from platform to platform in a dungeon or
cool.
during a really big boss intermission phase, that would be quite cool. Because we're playing a video game, spectacle and fantasy matters.
Yes.
I don't know, diving off a platform away from a massive explosion on your dragon, swooping about, sounds cool. Now, Ian said initially, dragon riding is going to look like what we saw in the videos. So, essentially, it's going to be quite good out of the gate. It won't be a situation where you feel like you really need the upgrades to make it feel good. Then says to me, how fast is this going to feel with the upgrades?
I don't believe that at all. It's not gonna. There's no way. They're going to lock it behind something. They're going to pigeonhole us. They're going to hamstring us. I 100% believe that.
Could that be fun? I mean, a while back, they mentioned you could go really fast, seemingly faster than current flying mounts, which could be cool. I mean, the idea of swooping off a big cliff faster than a current max speed mount, that's cool. It could feel incredible. Now, that said, this dragon riding system is a dragon flight expansion thing for the Dragon Isles. They are open to the idea of allowing dragon riding outside, but for now, they're just focusing on doing it for the Isles. And if you do want the traditional flying, as we've come to expect, that is still in the long-term plan for this expansion. Of course,
the cosmetic portion of that sounds awesome. I can't wait to make my dragon custom. I think the only way they can make flying, regular flying, a permanent thing later on is if they make this flying, Dragonflight flying, so fast and so good you won't want to use regular flying.
Of course, we're still not sure what this open world content will look like. As I said, Ian acknowledged they've underserved players in the open world content. In the Twitter space with T&E, he said that outdoor content needs to stand on its own for people who just play that, right? People for whom going around the world doing reps is their game. Him saying that is music to my ears. It's so good to hear them say that. And he went on to talk about how Zereth Mortis was, just kind of one zone where they were trying some new ideas. And essentially they want a continent with that philosophy. He even name-dropped protoform synthesis. So maybe there'll be a zone in Dragonflight that's like protoform synthesis in one thing that it has. Maybe another zone will have another thing. So I guess we can almost imagine they're giving each zone and its reps more of a gameplay theme, maybe a few light gameplay systems, perhaps trying to have it be more than just a bunch of world quests. Maybe giving us that sense of world content progression from day one instead of that sort of thing. Just sort of
You son of a bitch.
In a patch. If true, I think that will be massive for the broad appeal of the base.
Welcome to the stream, Brandy. How you doing?
And that's good. Instanced content then. Okay, they got into
I thought it was going to be ready
in the Asmongold interview. So Ian basically says that they do design with the knowledge of add-ons. Often it's them trying to counteract how add-ons work and how add-ons can trivialize fights. But their problem is that if they design for 0 add-ons, but then almost everyone uses add-ons, then the raid could just end up being easier than they intended, and that would just mess up the power curve. So essentially, it's a right headache, and Ian admitted that they don't exactly know how to get out of this situation.
You break DBM. Break DBM, break bigwigs, make it illegal to use them. Ban people who use them. That is the best way to get rid of. Honestly, I love the philosophy from Final Fantasy. It's just if someone's being an asshole, ban them. If someone's doing something you don't want them to do in the game, ban them. Just do it. Just do it. Just pull the trigger, man. Pull the trigger.
Now, what they have done is they've tried to telegraph things better so that players don't feel they need timers, but that they just are struggling with this sort of newer generation of computational add-ons that can really do a hell of a lot. You gave an example of, even in Wrath Classic, with Lanothel's Vampire Bite. Back in the day, and I remember this too, your raid leader shot calls that. But a weak aura could easily trivialize that, and that does make fight design harder for them. They're not clear on what the path forward is, but he's thinking along the lines of restricting API access during combat, putting more class tracking features in the base UI, so what a lot of people do with weak auras, and then designing from that baseline. but he did acknowledge that just taking away people's toys would feel bad. So it's a struggle, and they're not sure.
Yeah, but if they're choking on the toy, like if you've got a kid and your kid is swallowing Build-A-Blocks and dying, you take the toy away. You take the toy away. Why would a game company that has brushed abusing people under the rug for so long look at doing something that would go against people who are toxic, i.e. the same as toxic people they now are doing the damage control for and losing money at the same time? Because they're turning over a new leaf? That's what I hope. You only take the toy away if you care about the kid, not if you're busy elsewhere. I guess. Yeah. If you don't give a fuck about your kid, I guess that's a good way of putting it. So what you're saying is World of Warcraft is we have abusive parents who just don't care.
For me, I would say, you know what, fuck it. Massively restrict the API, and then look at FF14.
Yeah.
Look at how they do some of their icons and their fight readability, and I think we could get to a pretty good place.
FF14, dude.
Now, one thing that's quite nice in the new UI...
Don't get me wrong, FF14's not perfect. I'm not saying it is, but there's a lot of things and a lot of lessons you can learn from that game. The community is one of them. The community in that game is repressed and pretty much made to not be assholes. And if they're assholes, they get punished very severely. It doesn't matter if it's being forced or enforced, and they're not naturally just nice. Like, people in general need to be reinforced and told that they need to stop doing things. If you let people just go wild, they will just go wild. Well, to their staff, yes. To us, we are not the highest priority money is. So we're like the kid choking the staff is who was abused in silence. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Why they're making the new base UI for World of Warcraft is that there's essentially weak aura style tracking for core things, even including externals, which I think
this is all good. The UI changes is all good. The ability to adjust it too. Now kill DBM.
Well, too late and required, but nonetheless very nice. Now on Mythic Plus, so he said that the new season split, where, we get 4 Dragonflight dungeons, 4 older dungeons brought into Mythic Plus, he said that's not going to include Shadowlands or BFA dungeons, and that they are open to tweaking older dungeons to give them a more modern gameplay feel, though really they're thinking that's just Mists of Pandaria onward.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's funny, I think that is going to feel quite odd initially, but I do understand and agree with their goal, at least, of wanting each season of Mythic Plus to feel totally new in the same way that each raid feels totally new. Master Looter, then. Maybe we got good news here, everyone. Ian said that he kinda does want to bring it back. Now, he admitted that there's maybe problems with, how they actually go about doing that, but he admitted that, yeah, he'd like it back.
They're not going to bring Master Looter back. They're going to adjust personal loot to a point to where they feel like it's comfortable enough, but they're never going to bring Master Loot back. I highly doubt it.
Now, this is from a few reasons. He said part of it is them reflecting on where they have differed from the community recently. And the TLDR version of things here is that in Legion, they had to maintain essentially 2 versions of loot, even from like a data structure perspective, and that was a pain in the ass. They went to personal loot, it's had iteration, but it still has a lot of problems. Ian said the tradability clarity is bad, feels bad, and it's not like any of this has prevented World First guilds from doing crazy things. The problem is they can't just flip a switch in this one. So personal loot is definitely going to stay for most things, but the core idea of killing the loot boss and then dividing the loot between your group of friends, that is something that they want. Now, it does seem there are some tech challenges and some edge cases to fix. All of this impacts things such as, say...
All you have to do to fix personal loot is make all gear tradable at all times for any reason. That's all you have to do. And then if me and Perendi both get an item that we don't like, we can give it to someone else, and then boom. Or, it's so asinine to make it eye level specific. I hate it.
Loot table design... but it's good to know it's something they want to ship. I would not expect it for 9.0, perhaps a little bit later.
There's like fucking 8 items I got in Castle Nathria that I just could not use, and I could have easily given to like Mishka or someone else, and I just couldn't do it because my eye level wasn't high enough, even though I didn't fucking need it because my best stat was crit. So dropping a crit trinket for even a better healing trinket just was never worth it.
But I'm glad they've admitted that, yeah, there's something to say for Master Looter, and we'll get something to that effect back. A bit of PvP then. So long term, they want more battlegrounds, and they want to make war mode stuff better, saying that the best war mode content is the stuff that's organic, like what happened in the 8.1 assaults in BFA. Totally agreed. I remember doing those 8.1 assaults and just sometimes I'd just be like, oh, I'm in here, I'm playing, and 30 minutes passes and there's just some fun PvPs happening. I'd love to see what they can do there. Now, on the topic of BGs, which is very interesting to me because it's my preferred form of PvP, they said that they do have to overhaul the battleground system, that adding a new battleground to a massive pool of battlegrounds doesn't change the experience as much as they would like, which is why they have liked the Brawls feature, and they're going to continue.
They need to remake all this. They need to remake Wintergrass, remake Tolvir, all that stuff. Just remake it all. You can make Wintergrass good. You just have to remake it for the current populace.
Continue to add brawls through Dragonflight. Now, Brian also mentioned that the PvP team has been basically expanded quite a bit, which potentially means there's more that could happen there. So that's quite exciting. Another thing for gearing in PvP, just in addition, is that professions actually fit in that they craft entry-level PvP gear, which will have a pretty damn good PvP item level, but of course a lower.
This is the
PvP
best part
item
I like
level.
so far about.
Then also,
Dragonflight.
for the dragon riding system, there are unlockable PvP customizations, which I'd imagine could look pretty damn badass. So overall then, it seems that they are seeing the value of PvP.
Cosmetics are
made
king.
that team larger, that's great, but that there are structural things they want to fix up first. An example, I really want rated battlegrounds. A while ago with Bajira, those were mentioned as a good idea, a thing that they would like to ship. But they would need to do some work in the format. Similar to how they couldn't just go and launch solo queue arena. They had to kind of do the solo shuffle situation there. So overall, I don't think there's going to be...
Everything should be solo queue at this point. And WoW. Should have solo queue for everything. Solo queue should be available for rated BGs, for PvP, for whatever you want to do. You should not have to get a pre-made group to do it. Maybe... Actually, no, not anything. Anything. Everything should be randomly. You should be able to do whatever you want. I think that more openness, more freedom is better. I think restricting the community at all is bad. And when it doesn't work, fix it.
As much as I would like for PvP initially in Dragonflight, but it does seem like they have a number of pretty good thoughts and good directions. So maybe expect okay things for Dragonflight and significantly better gearing, but perhaps really big foundational things is 11.0. But I'm sure for a lot of people, rated solo queue, which is going to be there in Dragonflight, I think that'll be major.
That's good.
Classes then. Okay, a few interesting things on the Drakthir. So there's quite a few shared abilities between their two specs, which actually gives them great off-spec healing. They've got racials like a tail swipe knock-up and a wing buffet that knocks enemies back. So I'll tell you what, in a PvP situation, just sounds quite satisfying to use. So, seems neat. Now, resources. They use Essence, which regens over time, which makes me think, well, they kind of feel like a caster version of Hunter's Focus, perhaps?
My main problem with the Dragonflight new race is that there isn't more cosmetic changes for, like, body type. Some people like to be bulky, some people like to be slim and lithe. And I feel like they need to placate to both of those groups. And they don't.
Now, Helenka gave us a bit more
Same with
on
Morgan,
empowered abilities.
to be honest.
Those are the ones where they will be different depending on how long you hold the button. Design-wise, their idea is that the payoff will generally be, say, longer dots, longer hots, maybe more targets hit. Things like that. But they are being sure to avoid a situation where you'll just always want to do a fully charged empowered spell, because then it would just be a spell with effectively a 3-second cast. I'll be interested to see how many just like multiple
cast
uses or
animations look
purposes
so
they can
cool.
get within one button with this system, and how much depth there's going to be. Now, niche-wise for the Drakthir Evoker, the healing is going to essentially be an AoE clump healing focus, with also preparing for damage being a part of the kit, which is woven into their theming, being able to use like Bronze Dragon time magic. It seems interesting. They haven't added a healer since, of course, the Mistweaver Monk. Be kind of interested to see what a more modern
never had a caster,
healer would be
ever.
like. I mean, if you looked at Demon Hunter, that was like a sort of simple, smashy version of a DPS and a tank. So I kind of wonder what a modern design philosophy would do for a healer. Now on that, a lot of people were talking about the idea of a Drakthir Evoker tank. Ian said probably no to a tank because they are designed to be a caster. I imagine too, that's why they're not as sort of, well, bulky and chunky and full of protein shakes as much as a lot of people would have wanted from a dragon race. Because I think people think of dragons, they think of a big draconid with like a big pole arm that, you know, beats the shit out of things. Instead,
Yeah, sure, but like that doesn't that logic's stupid. That logic is so stupid because you have like Tauren male priests, and we're gonna have Tauren mages soon. Like that doesn't make your body type doesn't matter when it comes to what role you want to play as a gamer. It doesn't matter at all. Same thing with Coltiran. There's Coltiran healers. Like Coltirans are big beefy beefcake boys. Like you should be able to play what body type you want to play. It's stupid. That should be the priority, honestly. Your cosmetic and the way you look and the way you feel in the game should be your priority.
that it's more of a slender caster. Maybe a bit of a mismatch with player expectations, but hopefully they sell it to us when we get it. Okay, other class things then. Rogue, Mage, and Priest are going to be open to all races on 11.0 launch. Others may be added over time, but that is going to depend on the amount of animation work that is required to add classes to some of the races.
Does it make your job harder to add a second body type? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes.
And then also some classes with quite strict lore may need new narrative establishment. For talents then, they basically said they want to have blogs up before the alpha for player scrutiny and feedback. And they also confirmed that popular passives and legendary effects from multiple expansions will make their way back into the talents. Also for Covenants, they're unsure about how many Covenant things they're going to bring in. I imagine there's theming problems there. But certain ones will be back, even allowing for some crazy situations where you could kind of use multiple Covenant abilities at once, but it's all a work in progress. Now, I've got to say, if you were to take the greatest hits of your class over the last 6 years, which credit to Blizzard, there have been some cool interactions and cool abilities. I mean, that could feel really good, and that could mean that we start Dragonflight and don't feel like our toys have been taken away, which I think would be a positive.
Cool thing about this talent tree, by the way, people who don't know, is you can have an infinite number. It might be limited, but from what I can understand, you have an infinite number of loadouts you can have, and all your loadouts you can change them anywhere at any time for any reason. So if I go to a raid and I have 16 loadouts, I can change between those 16 loadouts all the time without a hindrance, which is the coolest fucking thing. And I'm so happy they have that.
Now, for some fundamentals of the talent system, there's 2 spending gates. So basically, you can only go so far until you've just spent X amount of points. And that's just so that people don't tunnel vision straight down the talent tree. Also, talent sharing, say via chat link, that's something they may end up doing, but not for launch. But I'd add to what's been talked about there that there's a decent chance an add-on could do this. Really, with talents, there's no need for me to belabor every point in this video because they're going to release blog posts and we'll see what they'll be like soon. Narrative then. And I'm going to start this with a nice thing from Ian via the Asmongold interview. He explained that Shadowlands was exciting to them as developers because it just let them build something totally new. But he qualified that response by saying, say what you will about Sylvanas and the Jailer. So, Ian knows. He was kind of poking a bit of fun there. He was acknowledging that that sentiment about those characters and that story existed. And I just felt it's good for the community to know that, you know, a bit of the self-awareness, which is something that does inspire faith. Okay then, a bit of story with the Drakthir. So the Drakthir basically wake up after a long time in stasis. Their brains are a wee bit scrambled, so they have this kind of mysterious...
So Demon Hunters. Same thing Demon Hunters did too.
...situation going on. Basically, it seems that Deathwing made them to deal with some sort of threat, and that they actually are a mystery to the other dragons. Alexstrasza does not know about the Drakthir existing. Now, of course, secret experiments, that is totally in line with how the Black Dragons have been portrayed. Now, whatever this mystery is, the Drakthir were created to deal with, we're going to find out in the starting zone, and we're also going to find out that it's waking up. So, it kind of sounds like a future raid tier to me. Now, they actually teased us returning to the Drakthir starting zone at a later point in Endgame. So there could be some neat things there with, well, I mean, the important thing, Dragonflight establishing its mysteries and its cool lore things, and then perhaps actually paying them off. Now, no big narrative details were given away through these interviews, but I did like this bit from Steve. Basically, they want us to feel some optimism and hope.
I'm going to hold back making a comment.
And, you know, I hear that and I
Holding back.
Is that an indication that they know that Shadowlands was too edgy? Too fatalistic?
I don't want to be a dick.
Just, you know, Shadowlands, right? Which, you know, maybe that is what it means, and if so, that would be good. Now, for the ending of this expansion, he said it will be epic and will involve characters that we, well, adventure with through the expansion. And I just wonder if that was said almost as an acknowledgement that, yeah, we need to tell people the ending's going to be great because we know the Jailer one really wasn't that well received and felt a bit disconnected from things. It's tricky. Look, for this, I do need to see to believe, I would say. But at the very least, good sounds are coming out of them. Now, patch 9.2.5 is also mentioned regarding story, especially that something will happen in Tirisfal with Kalia and the Forsaken. Who knows what, but it's good to see Azeroth stories be continued. Now, this is not from the interview, but another thing is that we've seen encrypted narrative content on the public test realm. And Ian actually mentioned this in his Asmongold interview as well. So I'm all for testing systems in the PTR and stuff, but the more narrative that we can keep secret for launch day, the better, because that just makes it more exciting. By the way, what sword? What sword? That's actually a quote from Ian. Ian said, "What sword?"
Well, that's not a quote. Well, no, that's not a quote from Ian. That's a quote from the community, and that's Ian poking at the community for making fun of it, because it's a meme at this point.
Acknowledging that. And I think that does mean that they're being playful, and they probably do have a plan for that damn thing. There was a quote going around where Ian said, "Oh, we drained the power from it, it's just a splinter." I mean, my read of that was that it was sarcasm, because that would be a bit of a weird answer to give otherwise, and we only found out via text. So when we actually now see Ian talk about it, you know, as a human with emotions, yeah, he said what sword. So I do imagine there's a plan there. But I will say it would be great to get a world update, maybe showing what has happened in and around the sword since Legion. You know, a lot of funky factions, a lot of cults, could be a cool story. A few miscellaneous things to finish us off then.
Or life.
Basically, after Wrath Classic, they are open to ideas, and a lot is on the table. Classic Plus, please.
No! No!
Also, for development, he said the...
Remake Cataclysm! Remake it! Make it better, please!
Expansion is quite far along, and that Alpha is coming soon. I would maybe expect late May. Also, they like Chromie Time, and they're rolling Shadowlands into Chromie Time because they decided that Shadowlands is just too crazy of a concept for a fresh player coming out of Exile's Reach. Makes sense. And then also, just, this is different, but tone. I just want to talk about the tone of the developers. It felt very different from some of the bits of, say, the first Ian Preach interview that got a bit frustrating. I just liked that. The tone seemed more open. It seemed more understanding of community frustrations. And that's something I really do appreciate from them. I think that's what the player base really needs to feel. Another thing, by the way, the Creation Catalyst, they like that, but they don't want to have to reinvent a whole new thing every tier, and that perhaps professions could fill that role, I imagine, with a BOP currency. But look, there you go. So if they're willing to listen to us and make good on that player feedback, we got to respond in good faith. Look, I am all for rolling out the cynical salt if they don't hold up their end of the bargain here. And I definitely feel more free to just completely share my thoughts and feel like a little bit more optimistic about things because there are no pre-orders right now, so I don't feel that responsibility of selling people down a river. But, you know, we it's not fair to set standards that they're never going to be able to hit. I want WoW to move in the right direction, and it seems like at least that is happening. This expansion has a focus on evergreen systems and game fundamentals.
I kind of look at it as you would a parent, man. If your parent was abusive for years and years and years, and then changed, all of a sudden became good, do you immediately just forgive them and say, hey, everything's okay, cool, awesome, we respect that, I'm looking forward to the change? No, you don't immediately change 180 and say everything's fine and hunky-dory. So it's fine for the community to feel the way they are and to be as aggressive as they are. I think that's fine. As long as they're not like being directly abusive, it's completely understandable to be the way they are right now. So
I think that could unlock.
You don't have to meet people halfway every time.
Future, but the work that it will take to build those foundations that will allow for WoW to blossom over time, that work has to be done now. And I think that may leave Dragonflight without maybe one or two crazy, super marketable feature sets. But I think it absolutely does pave the way for those incredible things to happen at a later date. So that's my thoughts. That's some extra things from the interviews.
In fact, more often than not in abuse situations, you got to meet them 80-20. They got to come most of the way. It's got to be a hop, skip, and a jump for you. But yeah, anyway, that's a good video. This video by Bellular Warcraft. If you guys haven't seen it yet, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Like it. You guys know where to find him. He's a pretty big YouTuber guy for World of Warcraft. I'll be right back. We're going to watch this Octopath Traveler review.